Hi, Gloria. Welcome. Welcome on the webinar end. Thank you for joining us. Hi, Justin Pippin, brand new Papa. Thanks for joining us. Hi, Edith. Thank you for joining us tonight. Welcome, everyone. We're going to get started here in a few minutes. We're getting set up here in the library. Katie Pattison is our host tonight, and she's there in the library. She refuses to show her face, which I always wonder, does she have horns or a snaggletooth? Like, she's not showing us. Not showing us, guys. You can always vote in the chat box. Hi, Alicia. Thanks for joining. Welcome, Josh. You guys, as you're joining us on the web feature, please go into your chat box and change the to everyone from host and panelist, and tell Katie and our presenter today, Mr. Jarkins, who you are and a little bit about your business. Tell them, you know, what your business is, maybe some of your questions. We're going to use the chat box a lot tonight to communicate because we are doing a hybrid with a lot of virtual tonight due to the COVID. We want to make sure that you guys that are on virtual are really incorporated into our presentation and that we're answering your questions. So while you're here, go ahead and type into that chat box with the everyone feature, your name, your business name, and maybe where you're located. David, do you have any other questions you'd like for them to enter right now?
Nope, not at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, great. You guys just give us a little bit more about yourself so David knows who he's talking to out there in website Never Never Land, because with COVID ramping back up, that's where we're at. So we have Alicia McFarland, web design here in Springfield, David. We've got Mike Tobin, who was one of our presenters at our E3 Women's Conference last year with True Strengths Council in St.
Hey,
Louis.
Mike, glad you made it.
Yeah, good to see you, Mike. We've got Nicole, who's there in Nixa. Nicole, what's your business? Edith Schubert with Primerica Financial Services here locally. Edith, good to see you.
Hey, Nicole, glad you made it.
Nicole does personal training, David.
Yep, I know Nicole.
Oh, do you? Good, good, good. All right, you guys go ahead and keep telling us who you are. We're at 7 o'clock. Katie, I'll let you take it away. I'm doing enough of the online chatter. You guys who are online with us tonight can keep telling us who you are. We've got Gloria Raymond from Kansas City at Raymond Counseling. Beautiful, wonderful. Thank you, Gloria, for joining us. We've got people from statewide. I love it. All right, you guys online, we've got 7 people online tonight, David. So if you want to take it away there, Katie, I'll let you.
All right, well, welcome everybody in the room. Hello. This is creating a high performance business operations structure. My name is Katie Pattison. I work at the Springfield Greene County Library here and coordinate business resources for the library and also the SCORE Southwest Missouri Workshop Chair. So I'm going to be over here handling our virtual crowd while David presents over here. Our microphone's pretty good, so they'll all be able to hear what you're saying, and I'll kind of communicate what they're saying via chat and stuff like that. Do we want to start with introductions in the room?
If you'd like, yeah.
Yeah, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, my name is Ben, and I have a leather business, supply leather and crafters and businesses, and we also manufacture leather products for businesses. So they can come to us and have an idea of something they want to make, and we'll go back and forth and create a product for them or make a product that they already had in mind.
Very cool.
Sell it to them at wholesale, and then they sell it at retail.
Okay. Great. Andy, you want to introduce?
I'm Amy Bliss, I'm a founder of A Girl Like Me Network. And I work with girls, 11 to 19, internships and all that fun stuff. I do around here in the community.
Yeah, I was here at the library on Sunday with my daughter. You guys had a big
Yeah,
meeting,
you should
didn't you?
come on in there.
I
Anytime
probably
I'm
she's
here-
just right that right age too. I should have
Yes,
popped in.
anytime I'm in here, which, you know, I always have my board meetings and stuff. Yeah, anytime, mine is open to the public, so go ahead.
Thanks, Amy. How about you all?
Well, my name is Lacey, and I'm an executive for a company that sells for Fortune 500 companies, and then I'm getting into e-commerce stuff now, so it was,
like getting into businesses with our new, they recognize companies, new to us, so it's sort of seeing what we can get out of.
Great.
Okay, everybody. Well, I'll just turn it over to you, David.
All right,
You want to
very good.
introduce yourself?
Thank you.
Um,
My name's
Katie?
David Jarkins. I started working on business operations decades ago. Did it for a Fortune 10 company and have helped every size business, basically from very large businesses to very small businesses. And have worked with some folks that are pre-launch entrepreneurs who just have an idea and want to try and get some validation for that idea. I came up with this presentation because a couple of years ago, I started doing research into small businesses and was trying to find out how small businesses operated, not just internally, but externally, and what kind of struggles they came up with. And then obviously we had our pandemic and a lot of things happened. And I started hearing about businesses that were being turned down for PPP loans. And the stories I was hearing didn't make a lot of sense. So hearing directly from the business owners that you're getting turned down, I found out that in every case where I was able to find that information, it was because of how their business was structured, which seemed very strange to me. And so I started following up on that. And as I talked to more business owners and entrepreneurs, I found that this was a real need. There's not a lot of information out there about how you really should structure your business internally and how you should operate it. So that's what I've been trying to do. And as I meet with new people who have business ideas and folks that have established businesses, I found that I'm able to help them quite a bit through helping them build their business operation. So for tonight, what I want to cover is give you a broad idea of what makes up your internal business operation structure and why you need to create it. So business operations is basically made up of 4 different parts. You've got a mission, a vision, you've got systems, and then you've got your people. It's all your internal structure. Mission statement is basically what you do, how you do it, why you do it. This is the story that your company tells. If someone asks, what does your business do? This would be that 1 or 2 sentence statement that you're going to tell folks, right? The vision is what you want to accomplish. Some people say this is long-term. Typically, it's a 3-year time frame that you're looking at with your vision statement, but this is what you, as the business owner, in 3 years want to be able to accomplish. Systems are, this is the heart of it. This is the critical part. This is your standard operating procedures, your policies, your business intelligence. And I'm going to go into this in a lot more detail as we go through this, but I want to give you an idea. How often you review and measure things, so that's part of your rhythm. And then something I call navigational issue resolution. It's a really long term, and it's there to remind folks that sometimes you get off track. So you're headed in one direction, and if you find you're getting off track, how do you put a process in place to keep yourself getting put back on the right course? And then finally, people, making sure you got the right people in the right seat. They have the accountability, independence, and support that they need to do their jobs. And then they have the proper goals and objectives also. Okay, so we'll go through this in a little bit more detail here. So why do you want a high performance business operation structure? what you're going to get from it is a business that has higher profits, okay? You're going to see less waste, and that's going to be in money, materials, and time, because you're going to be far more efficient in the way that you operate. Your employees and your customers are going to be more satisfied, and that's primarily because they're going to know what to expect. They're going to have a consistent experience, okay? And then increased company valuation, what that means is that when you go to sell your company is going to be worth more. And then decreased day-to-day involvement by the owner. So when you get started, right, you're passionate about this thing and you're there 16, 20 hours a day working on this thing. But after you do that for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, that may kind of get old and you may want to pull back and start doing something a little bit different. Structuring your business properly will allow you to step back. And this is where the real value to you and to your company starts building, okay? By doing these things, it gives the business owner more time to work on the business rather than in the business. So what do I mean by that? Owners that work on their business have more successful companies than those who work in their business. When you're working in your business, that's when you're actually out there turning the screws, right? Unloading the truck, talking to the customers on the phone, packaging the stuff and sending it out. You're doing the actual work. That's when you're working in your business. And at the beginning, when it's just you or just you and a handful of folks, that's very necessary. You have to do that. But as you're doing that, if you're working on your business, you're building it, you're building those systems, you're creating that vision and that mission, and you're working on your people. And that's where your real value and what you're adding to your company really starts to add up. So as I was doing the research for this and looking at these businesses, trying to understand why were they failing, and I started gathering my information and I wanted to validate that. And so I went to several sources here, and you can see some sources that are very well known: Entrepreneur Magazine, Forbes, Tony Robbins, very well known financial guy, and Investopia, which is another publication for small business. As I'm looking at these reasons, it becomes pretty quickly easy to start categorizing them by those 4 different segments that I showed you on that other slide. And you can see that you've got failure to create a proper business system. Well, your systems, right? That's what failed. You didn't do that. And that's what each one of these letters down here stands for. You've got M for mission, V for vision, S for systems, and P for people. So if the business didn't build that particular segment, that significantly contributed to their failure. And you can see that all of these have at least one component, and some of multiple components, for why these companies fail. And this is the same thing I was seeing with these folks with the PPP loans, why they were getting turned down, is because they didn't have their business built properly. Okay, so going back here to the business structure, I want to go through each one of these in a little bit more detail. And I'm trying to get through this kind of quickly so that as you guys are going to have questions, you can ask that and we can answer some of those. So the mission statement. This is, and I put these in order. Let me go back. Go back one. It's my opinion that you need to build these in this order: your mission, your vision, your systems, and then your people. And some people may question why you want to do that. Your mission, I think you need to have that first, because you need to know what it is your company does, what it is you stand for. And when someone asks you, whether it's an external person like a banker or an investor, or if it's someone that you're looking to hire or a potential customer, what is it that your company does? You want folks that gravitate around that particular focus, right? That mission. So that's why I think you need to build that first. The vision, that's where you want to be again. So what are your plans? How do you want to get there? Or where do you want to get? And then your systems, once you have those, it's a lot easier to put that together. People last may seem a little bit strange, but I've seen a lot of examples where if you do it the other way, you get your people and then try and build your systems, things can get confused. If you've got this person that wants to do this part of the operation and another part of the operation, and they don't really go together, that can cause an issue. It's a lot easier if you do it the other way. You have your systems and say, okay, we've got manufacturing, for instance, and so you've got a manufacturing person leading that. Sales, you've got a salesperson leading that. Once you get it structured, it's a lot easier to plug your people in. Okay, so the mission statement, the who, what, why of your business. This is going to be a statement. I'll go through some examples here. Like I said, that very concisely says who you are and what you do and why you do it. This is going to be part of your company culture. This is going to be on a plaque on your desk, or maybe even a piece of paper just stuck to your computer monitor, right? Something that's always going to be there to remind you who you are, what you're doing. You may want to post it in parts of your offices, out on your manufacturing floor, things like that. Ideally, you want this to be 1 or 2 sentences. I've seen teams put these things together and they're a paragraph long. It's got to be something that is going to be memorable, so that when your employees are out talking to people, at a trade show, for instance, right? Someone walks up to your booth. What do you guys do? You don't want them to go into a 15-minute monologue about what we do. This is what we do, okay? And this serves as an anchor. And I'll give you some examples later on, but as you're building your systems and your company's maturing, and someone comes up with an idea, what if we did this? Does that really fit with who we are? And it doesn't mean that your company can't evolve and change, but you have to make that decision. Do we want to go in this direction now as a company, or do we want to stay the course of where we are and where we've been going? Okay, so the first thing that I've seen business owners do is they'll go out and they'll look at big companies. And I'll say, well, what's their vision or what's their mission statement? And they'll try to take those and massage it. So here's mission statements from 4 large corporations. I would bet anything that you know at least one, and you may know all 4 of them. So what's the first one? Usher in the next industrial area and to build, move, power, and cure the world. What company is that? Save people money so they live better. Improve its customers' financial life so profoundly they couldn't imagine going back to the old way. And then my favorite one, spread ideas. Know who these are? Who are these companies? First one is General Electric. Okay. Now, when you know what General Electric does, one of their big divisions is medical systems. And so that's what their mission statement is. We save people money who can live better. You ever heard of Walmart? Small company, start out in Arkansas. You can look it up when you get home. Improve its customers' financial lives. Quicken. So they tax software, business software, things like that. The last one here may be a little bit more obscure. TED, have you ever heard of TED? TED Talks and things of that nature? That's their mission statement, spread ideas, okay? And it's, once you know who it is, oh yeah, that makes sense. But you just hear that, and if you were a small business and someone came up to your booth and you said, what do? We save people money so they can live better. Okay, by doing what? How do you do that? It's a little bit too broad for a small business. I think it needs to be more concise. So these are mission statements that I just came up with as examples. So the first one there would be a high quality furniture manufacturer, for instance, right? Create high quality furniture from sustainable materials for individuals seeking modern design. Are you going to see yeah, go ahead.
Is there a way we can turn that front light in front of that because it's got a glare, I'm sorry, that makes it look
Okay.
good. Thank you, sorry.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, we're good.
Good? Okay. So are you going to find the Victoria era chair being sold on these people's website? Probably not, right? So when they're having an employee meeting and they say, you know what, we should be using old growth virgin redwood from Sequoia National Park. Is that sustainable? No, they're not going to be doing that. And I realize those are some pretty extreme examples, but that's where you start to take your mission statement and flow it into your culture. So that when you're coming up with new ideas or thinking about these things, it may be a great idea. There may be a market opportunity for it. But the thing that you hear as a small business owner is niche down, right? Get more precise, get into a niche business, because that is what's going to make you successful. So if you're focusing on something like this and you've got your mission statement and you're looking at these new ideas and what you're doing, it's going to help you stay concentrated so that you don't start making food towns out of plastic, for instance, from these folks, right? It's not going to let you get too divergent. It's going to keep you focused on what you're doing. The next one there, support a healthy diet in our community's members by providing locally produced food from an organic environment. So this would be a natural food store, for instance, right? You're not going to find Twinkies in the aisles, right? You're not going to find stuff from outside the local area. So here in Missouri, you wouldn't find things from California or Michigan or Mexico or anything like that. It's all locally sourced. It's not going to be stuff that's grown on a factory farm because it's got to be organic. So when you as an employee go there, you know who you are and what you're supposed to be doing. But as a customer, you also know that this is the company's mission. And when I go to shop there, this is what I can expect to get out of it, right? And then supply small business with low cost printer ink on a reliable schedule. Again, same thing. It's staying focused on who your demographic is, what your business is, what your product is, what you're trying to do. And this may be a small company that refills ink cartridges and then drives them to their customers, in a very small local area, maybe within 100 miles, something like that. And they're able to niche and focus on that particular customer demographic. Okay, does that make sense?
Hey, David.
All right, vision statement.
Hey, David.
We have a question over here.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh, hey, this is Mary. So I actually popped into the chat box online because we have about 10 people online. So I asked them to drop their mission statement for you to look at. And Shrita did share with us. Katie, do you want to read it since you're there? And
Yeah,
he
so
can
I don't
probably
know if you're
hear you
talking.
better.
Yeah, so Mary said in the virtual, she asked people to kind of share their mission statement if they had one. So we did have one participant share the mission statement, and it was to provide a space for restoration, beautification, and preparation, expressing the depth and richness of God's intentions towards mankind by providing a kingdom experience, not just a service.
That's one mission statement for someone, something.
And so, David, I'd like for you to give feedback on that based on your conversation of having everything sort of skewed down to one, focus.
So she's saying, do you have any feedback on that based on sort of the guidelines that you've provided about being concise? And you want to read it?
Doing this real time? Okay.
Yeah, we're doing it real time.
You're real time, David.
No
This
pressure,
is what
right?
happens when I get in on a presentation. You're
Yeah,
welcome
well, I'll
to
remember that
everyone
next
there.
time.
We won't even-
Yeah. So David, we're looking at that mission statement and that focusing, and if that is focused enough, or if you would consider that that is too broad, perhaps, or if that is focused enough.
I think, so reading that, I think it's an excellent start. I don't know, without knowing the nature of the business, and it's part of it, right? You have to have that conversation. And when we go through exercises and building mission statements like that, I've seen it where it takes a week of getting back together and talking about it and taking it apart and putting it back together. So without knowing what the business is and what they really want to contribute to the community, it's hard to say if that's focused enough. I think it's a good start, but just reading it, I think there could be a little bit more done to it. Okay.
So,
it's a spa.
KG, did you see that?
Yeah, a salon
Yeah.
spa, she says, is the
Yeah.
business. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
All right, vision statements. This is long-term accomplishments. By long-term, I mean 3 years. for your business. So you define success, and I come back to that in a second. You need 1 to 3 items. What do you consider success? 1 is ideal, 2 is okay, 3 is in the maximum amount that you can have. I've seen people who will have vision statements and they'll have a whole list. No more than 3. If you can get it to 1, that's perfect, okay? It's got to be something that's attainable. You'll see vision statements from small business owners. Well, I want to be a $1 billion business in 3 years. Okay, how do you plan to get there? Is that truly attainable? $1 billion in 3 years?
1%.
Probably not, right? Those are called unicorn companies, and you can see that they're very rare. It's got to be specific and measurable. So you can't have something that says, we want to be the best, whatever. How do you measure best? What does that mean? Well, that means that we want to have 90% of the market share. Okay, that's something that's measurable. That you can have as a vision, but you can't say something nebulous. It's got to be specific. It's got to be measurable. And then you got to commit to it 3 years and put down a specific date. On June 1st, 2025, this is what we're going to have for this goal. Okay. Now, going back to that first one, you define success. You personally are going to come up with what your vision is. Is that $1 million in revenue? Okay. Is that what you want your company to accomplish in 3 years? Possibly. Do you want to have 100,000 customers? Maybe that's what it is. Produce 50,000 units a year in 3 years. You have to figure out what it is. What is that specific measurable thing? But it can be more than that. I've seen small business owners that say, you know what, in 3 years, I'd like to pay my house off. That can be your vision. But if you do something like that, I want to drive a Ferrari in 3 years. Okay, that can be your vision. But you got to translate that back into something for your company. Because if you go into work the next morning and say, okay, folks, team meeting, I'm paying my house off in 3 years. I don't think anyone on your staff would be too excited about that. That's great for you, but what does that mean for us, right? So you have to change that back into earnings, and then figure out, you know, how much do you have to earn over that 3 years, take out of the company, that you can translate into sales. So it's got to be something that you can translate back into a corporate goal, okay? It will flow into a personal success for you if you're able to do that, right? But you have to be able to flow that back into a corporate goal. But the point is that your vision, whatever that ultimately is, that's something that has to motivate you on a daily basis. When you get up in the morning and you start plugging away at this thing, that's what you're trying to hit, okay? And you're free to make whatever decisions you make, but it's got to be personal. And again, you want to have no more than 3 of them. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? Okay. Now we get into the meat and potatoes part. So you know who you are and where you want to go. Now you've got to build the structure in your company to get things to happen. Your business systems are made up basically of 4 different things. You've got your standard operating procedures and policies, business intelligence, rhythm, and then your navigational issue resolution. Okay, so we'll look at each of these. As you develop these systems, what that's going to do is not only make your life easier, but if you can get it to a point where you can actually franchise your business. If you build your systems well enough and they're replicatable enough, then that's where you get into the opportunity to build franchises. You guys know who Ray Kroc is, right? He's the guy who founded McDonald's franchising. He didn't create McDonald's, he created McDonald's franchising. And it's because he built all these systems. So it didn't matter if you were in New Jersey or if you were in Nevada. You went into a McDonald's, you got the same thing because he standardized all of his systems to the point where he could pretty much guarantee whichever facility you went into, you got the same thing. So with your standard operating procedures, The first thing you're going to do is develop your SOPs by your department. So each department obviously is going to have to sit down and do their own standard operating procedures. So in manufacturing, for instance, you go into the production floor, you've got to know how to put the thing together, right? How you go and get the parts, how you assemble it, how you test it, how you package it, all of that. And there's a lot of different ways that we can do this. I've seen where it's just written, right, step by step. Take this part, assemble it into this part, you know, put this clamp on here, whatever it is. As you get more complex though, and what I'm seeing more, and not just in manufacturing, but other parts, is people are creating videos. So it isn't written, it's a video. And I've been part of procedure building where we actually film them assembling a system. That makes it a lot easier for the guys who build these things, because now they can go back and look at the video about how it went together. If you're reading in a book and looking at a picture, sometimes it's not quite as obvious as if you've got a video, you can see how the thing goes back together. And that's very helpful. And I'm sure it's very obvious to you that people are gravitating more and more towards video-based media than they are to written-based media, right? You don't see people coming out with new apps to share text pretty much, right? You got Twitter, you got text messaging, things like that. But as far as video, it seems like there's new platforms coming up all the time. So that's something to think about, is what's going to fit with your particular procedure and how you want to be able to convey that to folks, okay? And then you've got an employee handbook. This is something that you want to develop. There's a lot of examples out there on how to develop these, but it's important that when you have employees that there is a document they can go to and reference to know how are they as an employee supposed to do certain things, what things are they allowed to do, or are they not allowed to do. You want folks to know how many sick days they're going to get, vacation policy, how, for instance, reviews are done, things of that nature. So you want that written in a document so that everyone's on the same page, okay? Company policies, this is something else you got to think about. And it's a lot easier if you do it beforehand. So customer returns, someone buys something and they want to return it. How do you want to handle that? I know there's companies out there that if you want to return something, you can bring it in a brown paper bag with all the stuff just kind of thrown in it, and they'll give you your money back and wish you a good day. Other places, you can take it, and because that plastic cellophane wrapper has gone off, sorry, we're not taking it back. Done. So what is your policy going to be on that? So when that first time a customer calls back and, hey, you know, I bought this, but I want to return it, what is your response going to be to that? Shipments. If you're receiving shipments and a shipment is late, how are you going to respond to that, to the shipping company, to the vendor that sent it? What's your policy going to be around those sorts of things? I mean, all of these things you got to think about and come up with different policies for. And it may not be something that you think of right away, but as things occur and things are happening, you'll want to start thinking about, do we need to put a policy around this? Okay. You want to start this early in the life of the company and keep it growing, and then start small by documenting routine things. So you can't get into this documentation overkill. And I've seen where teams, I just heard about this, this company where they shut down for a month, wrote all of these documents, had a book that was probably 2-3 inches thick, that went up on a shelf, and they never used it again. Because no one's going to dig through that book looking for that thing, right? So you want to have standard operating procedures in the proper format, in the proper media for the people who are going to be using it, accessible to them, and around things that they're really going to need to know. Like in manufacturing, how are you going to build this thing? In sales, how do we respond to customer requests? You want to make sure that your customers get responded to the same way every time. So that's where you want, and you want to document around those things where if a new employee comes in, they've got a reference that they can use, right? And start from there and then build your way up. One note here, and I've seen this happen even in small companies, is that keeping up with that documentation and revision can take a full-time employee to do it. So that's something to think about, that if you start getting big enough, you may have one employee And their whole job is keeping up with documentation, okay? Keeping the standard operating procedures up to date, keeping all the policies and everything up to date. Granted, you'll be a little bit larger at that point. Maybe you can afford that, or maybe you can hire that out, find a subcontractor to do it, but it's something to consider, okay? And then aligning all of your policies, standard operating procedures, and your employee handbook. You don't want to have them contradicting each other. So as you're reviewing these things, your team's going to have to think about all of the different aspects of it and how it works together. Okay, so when you standardize a process like your SOPs, your employee handbook, things like that, you're going to increase your efficiency because folks are going to know what they need to do, when they need to do it, and how to do it. And you're going to set expectations for your employees, for your customers, for your vendors, for everyone who's wrapped around your business. And if this is something that folks can reference, then they don't have to be coming back to you saying, hey, how do I do this again? What do I need to do? We had this situation pop up. How do you want us to handle it? They may do that the first time, and we say, well, we've got a document on that. Go look at the video. Go find that book on policy. Go find the employee handbook. Remember, we did all that. And as that happens, they'll be coming to you less because they can take care of it themselves because you've documented all that. Okay, business intelligence. This is something that I think is not done nearly enough in small business. And basically what this is the data gathering for all the things that you do, aggregating that, analyzing it, and using it to help improve your business, okay? So you've got data gathering, aggregation, analysis, and reporting. To give you an example, sales team I was working with, they were getting calls and folks would ask for quotes, things of that nature. And we needed a way to track who was calling, when they were calling, what they were asking for, so that you could follow up with them. In a couple of weeks, you call back and say, hey, you asked us for this quote. Are you ready to purchase? Has anything changed? Is there any other information you need? So we would start keeping track of that to see what was it that triggered the customer purchase, or if there's anything else we could figure out with it. And we'd follow up with these folks for 3 months, for instance. And at the end of 3 months, we would quit. Well, after we gathered enough information, what we learned, and it was pretty surprising, that if they didn't buy that item within 2 weeks, there was no way to predict when they were going to buy it. They may buy it in 3 weeks. They may never buy it. It may be a year. But you were really wasting your time and theirs unless there was some reason that they told you that it was going to be 2 months from now that we're going to buy it. For them to continue to follow up with that customer. So we're able to save the customer some frustration in our time. And we also knew that within 2 weeks, we may be shipping this product. And then you're able to determine if you have X number of calls come in, what percentage of those are going to turn over so that you can plan manufacturing, things of that nature. But unless you're gathering that information, there's no way to analyze it. There's no way for you to know what's going on. And if you're not doing that, like I say at the bottom there, that could cost you a great deal. So business intelligence, data gathering is something that I see missing from a lot of business owners that I talk to. And it's probably the one place where you can gather a lot of information and figure out a lot of things that are going on with your business that you don't even know is happening. Your business rhythm. So with this, I mean, how often are you reviewing what's going on with your company? How much are you checking in with them? How much are you making sure that you're all on track? So it all starts with the annual business review. And this is where your whole team is going to get together and you're going to look at the prior year's performance. How did we do? How much money did we make? How many units did we sell? How many new customers did we bring on? All that sort of thing. And then you're going to take that and look at your vision statement. If that's what we did, how close are we? Are we on track to hitting what we said we wanted to do in 3 years? And then coming back to your plan to understand what you need to do. So if you're in year one and you got a 3-year plan and you do your annual review and you are 1/3 of the way there, you're on track, right? If it's going to be a linear progression, you're doing well. If you're ahead, great. Can we grow more? Or is there something else that we need to do? Or do we just stay the course? If you're behind, how are you going to catch up? What's the plan there, right? So knowing what that variation is at an annual milestone is going to help you understand where you are and what you need to do to accomplish your goals. Then you have your quarterly, monthly, weekly, if necessary, reviews. And this is where you're going to be reviewing your finances, your goals and objectives, things of that nature, right? In small businesses, I know that there's a lot of business owners that don't want to share financial information with their people, and that's fine. But you have to find a way to share information with them that lets them know how they're doing, right? How your business is doing. And that may be just raw numbers. We're at 90% revenue, we're at 105% revenue if you don't want to give them actual numbers. But to me, it's far more compelling if you share at least the top line sales number. I understand if you don't want to share what your EBITDA number is with your employees, that can be kind of sensitive. But having that annual revenue number out there so that they know what they need to do, what they need to hit, I think is very helpful. Another real financial number is expenses. If employees don't know how much they're spending, I mean, they go to the shelf, right? And they take something off the shelf and they use it and they throw it away. You know, is that a $1 item or is that a $100 item? And they don't realize that they're wasting thousands of dollars because they don't know what this stuff costs, right? If you're sharing that with them and say, okay, we've got a line item where this is the amount of money we're willing to spend to be able to hit our numbers. If they know what that is, most people are pretty willing to step up and say, okay, we're going to do what we can to try and save the company money here, because they realize that if the company's making more money, there's more opportunity for them to make money, right? So sharing those high level numbers, I think, is important. And reviewing those in your quarterly and monthly meetings, I think is going to help with your employees quite a bit. So you're going to want to share and review your quarterly, monthly, and weekly numbers in some cases. That's going to be finance and goals. So with your goals, you've got a couple of things to support that. You're going to develop scorecards for that. You guys know what I mean by scorecards? You're going to have some kind of measurement out there. And then KPIs, key performance indicators. Setting up key performance indicators is kind of tricky because what you're looking at are numbers that are going to predict where other numbers are going to go. If you're tracking revenue and you see revenue go down this month, it's too late. The revenue is already gone. But let's say that you figured out that if you get so many hits on your website, that is going to track to so many dollars in revenue a month from now, 2 months from now, 3 months from now, whatever it is. If you see that number of engagements on your website go down, your revenue is going to go down. So what are you going to do now to keep that from happening? And that's where your key performance indicators are going to come in. Those are predictive measurements. And those can be, like I said, those can be kind of tricky to figure out what they are. And then daily stand-up meetings for quick assessments. This is something that I've seen, especially in service and manufacturing businesses. So in manufacturing businesses, there's a special order that comes in, everyone stands up, first thing in the morning, it's 5 minutes. We've got this we got to get done, this we got to get done, who's going to do what, that sort of thing. Same thing in service industry, right? An emergency call from a customer, who's going to jump on that because we've got all this other work that customers need us to do. Having that real quick meeting in the morning can help build your team, build that cohesiveness, and get everyone on the same page. So these kind of rhythms are something that is going to be part of your culture, and it's something to really think about. People are going to complain about too many meetings, and I understand that, but if those meetings have something in them that they're going to get out of it, like where are we at and what do we need to change to hit a number, or are we doing well enough that we can keep doing what we're doing, that's just going to help drive your employees to help out where they can. okay? And then regular one-on-ones. This was something that I started doing with my teams years ago, where I would bring my department leaders in for an hour once a week. Then I'd have a time scheduled for them. And they would come in, we would talk. And sometimes it would be 5 minutes. And sometimes it would take the whole hour. But every week they knew that we were going to sit down together. And if there was anything going on, they would have my undivided attention for that amount of time. So what that means is they don't have to sit there and think, oh, I got to go talk to them about this. Oh, I got to go talk to them about that. They had notes, right? Had a little note page, wrote it down, and then we talk once a week. This can help build your relationship, especially with your department heads, you know, so that they know that you're there for them. All right, and then navigational issue resolution. This is something in your meetings that you're going to have that you want to have built into that sort of thing. So you want to have a way to identify when there are issues coming up. Okay. So like I said before, if your website, if you normally get so many hits and you know that that's going to eventually translate to so many dollars, if that goes down, you've got an issue, right? So how are you going to identify that? Well, you're going to have that key performance indicator to measure it. But once you see that go down, someone has to take ownership for that. You found a problem, whatever that problem is, you've got to assign that to someone. One person, not a team, you know, someone over there, you know, you guys need to look at this. It's one person. I worked with a gentleman years ago when he said he always wanted one throat to choke. And he didn't care whose it was, but someone had to have their throat there for him. And then prioritization. You know, obviously you're going to run into issues. You need to prioritize it as a team. You know, where does this hit? If we're going to work on one thing this week, which one is it going to be that we're going to work on? You can see a million different issues out there, and I'm sure you've all been in situations where you see a lot of things. What are you going to work on first? That's where you got to prioritize it. And then the last one, resolution progress tracking. This is something that can fall by the wayside. So you get an issue, you figure out what it is, you assign it to someone, and they say, okay, I'll take care of it. 6 months later, this problem pops up. Whatever happened? You know, whatever happened? I thought you were going to work on that. Well, I got busy. It didn't happen. So how are you tracking the resolution? And this can be very effective, where if you have a tracking, an issue tracker, what you may see is every week when you're doing your team meeting, okay, we had this issue last week. What's the progress on it? And that person knows that every week they're going to have to answer that question. That issue is going to get resolved. So just some ideas on that. And then lastly, people, I'm just going to touch on this very quickly. You want to have people in their proper seat. What that means is actually develop, and I've seen people do this, and I encourage it. Develop an org chart. So you'll have CEO, COO, CFO, right? And then flow that all the way down. What are the positions that you really feel like you need in your company to be able to run it efficiently based on what you do, how you want to do it, that sort of thing. Create an org chart, draw the little squares and put the titles in, and then go back and start putting names in. Your name first day is going to be in every one of those squares, right? Because you're doing everything. And then as you need people to bring on, you can plug their name into each one of those. It seems strange, but it gets your mindset wrapped around how you're going to structure your organization so that you're not just hiring people because you need someone to come in and help you package something, right? You need someone to come in and turn the screws every day. Think about how your organization is going to be built, and then you can be far more strategic in the people that you're bringing into your organization. You want to look at ability and desire. Those are two key aspects. I've seen people who have had all of the credentials in the world, all of the experience, all of the training. So they've got the ability to do it. They just don't want to do it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they've got 6 degrees and 120 years of experience and can do this in their sleep. If they don't want to do it, they're not the right person. Don't bring them in. On the flip side, you've got people that, yeah, I want to do it. I want to, put me in, I'll do it, but they have no training, no experience, that sort of thing. And there's times when it makes sense to take someone who has a little bit less experience, a little bit of less ability, but they're strong in desire and they're willing to do whatever it takes to make it happen. Sometimes it's worth taking that gamble on those folks. But if you can get that combination of someone who has all of the ability to do it and they want to do a great job, that's your ideal candidate to put into that seat, okay? And then, like I say at the bottom there, all things being equal, hire someone trainable with desire. So, and I've seen this many, many times where someone just, they don't have all of the experience that you want, but they're eager, they're very trainable, and you see that from their history, right? That they've always stepped up to the plate. That's the kind that would be the best person to put into that, okay? And the last thing there, and this is very painful, don't just hire someone to fill a slot. I have been through this more times than I care to say, where we desperately needed a person and we hire the first, you put the ad out there, one person answers, great, you're hired, you put them in there, and it's just a disaster. And now you got to get rid of them, right? It doesn't do them any good, it doesn't do you any good. And as the years went on, I started adopting this and asking my team, let's not, I know that it's hard, I know that we need the help, but until you find the right candidate, someone you're excited about, we're not going to hire someone, okay? And it is painful, but then when that person does show up, it makes all the difference in the world. Okay, so in summary, why and what do you want to do? So as we talked about, you want your mission statement, your vision, you want to create your systems through your SOPs and policies and things like that. Make sure you're hiring the right people. And what that's going to do for you, it's going to improve your efficiencies, it's going to improve your profits, it's going to standardize the experiences that you're going to see from customers and employees. And I can't say this enough, standardized experience, especially for a customer, is key. If you call somewhere and you know you're going to sit on hold for 5 minutes, that's better than if you call and sometimes it's 3 minutes, sometimes it's a half an hour, and sometimes it's 15 minutes. There's been studies on this, and if you know what you're going to get, you're far happier than if you have no idea, right? Increased employee involvement. Again, this is something, if you're able to build your internal systems, your employees are going to know what they need to do and how to do it, and they're going to be far more engaged. It's going to give you more free time as a business owner, because the people know what they're supposed to do, when they're supposed to do it, and you don't have to stand there and help them with it. You're going to be more of a resource. You're going to be the one helping put those policies and procedures and things like that in place to help your employees do their jobs. And it's going to increase your company valuation. If you are the one that's doing everything, and a prospective buyer comes to look at your company when you get ready to sell your company, if it's just you that's running everything, you're going to get very little for your company. But if you're able to say, we've built all these systems, and when I step away, everything keeps running, you can tell the buyer, I went on vacation for a month last year. I just left my cell phone and my laptop, which is a test I have for some business owners. Okay, you put your cell phone, put your laptop here, and go away for a month. That ain't gonna happen. If you can do that, you can demonstrate to a potential buyer that you've already built the company and all the systems and everything, and all they got to do is step in. And they're not buying a job, they're buying a company. Okay. All right, that's what I had for this evening. What questions?
I like the fact that I feel like I'm really on the right track because I have a nonprofit that's kind of using the same structure, but also I am in business for profit as well. So, but definitely helps me line up with my profit business for sure, like kind of setting it up straight. But I do have a question with the nonprofit sector, kind of mirroring, like I said, I know we're talking about, I'm guessing off of profitable businesses, but I have a really fast pace nonprofit that that's been excelling over the last, we're in our second year. And just understanding, it was earlier, and I want to make sure that I have it right. The SO, the policy, the standard operation procedures.
Yep.
So like understanding like, how do you get the right people? Like, I mean, I have one, but I don't have everyone that I need to make sure that, because honestly, I would create this all myself, the manuals and everything, but I don't have them where like, I would hate to say, okay, I need to cut some board members off because I don't need it, I'm not utilizing it. And then, but how can I make that, how do you find where you can utilize them? A responsibility, because like I'm the one making calls to the people that's involved with it, like, following up, and it gets overwhelming. So how to put them in their places, like, based off of what they're already doing, which is,
Yeah, so that's what.
she's on the board, but.
You got your people before you put your processes in place, right?
That part, and like, so now I'm just like, oh my goodness, like I got all these people around me now,
Right.
and now I'm feeling like I got a board meeting coming up, and so literally I said for the new year, we're gonna put it in some things more in perspective.
So remember when I talked about creating an org chart, right? You've got, here's all of your different people or your different.
You got your CEOs, you said, yeah, but.
Right, so you've got a job for everyone to do, right?
I do, I got plenty of work.
So I would start, based on what you're telling me, that's where I would start. I put together your org chart
This
and
is what
say,
needs to be
these are the
done.
functions that we need to have done. And then start talking to these folks and say, this is what I need to have done. Who wants to take on this part? Who wants to take on that part? And then let them take that on. That will help focus them. Okay, so that if you say this is your job, it'll focus them in that area. So if you've got people that are going in all different directions, right now, it's because they don't know what their job is. They think that they have to try and help with everything.
Yeah, or just show up for the day of the event, because it's already, been planned out and things like that. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like, there's a lot of back end work that I have to do. And honestly, I would rather be more working on the business instead of in the business.
Yep. Yeah, and that's, just from what you're telling me, I think that would be a good place to start.
Okay.
Is figure out what functions you need to have done, and then have a very open meeting and say, okay, I've been thinking about this. This is where we need to focus. So who wants to work on this? Who wants to work on this? And that's all that you need to focus on.
Yeah, there we go.
Or this is your position, this is your functions of your title as a board member. So I need you to do this, not who wants to do it, right? I mean,
Yeah, that part too, but some, like, even like the, even at the beginning though, like sometimes, I didn't get the titles, like she's the development director, she does with the fundraising and things like that. But then I have other people, like they might have a title, but is it necessary for the business? Because at first I thought it was necessary, right? Now I'm like, okay, well, you can do this actually, because this is what can be done.
And that's okay.
Like-
You can move those boxes around
can be
and
done.
get rid of them and move those people into other, as you're.
Because I don't want to lose nobody, because everyone's willing to work,
Yeah.
but again, like you said, no one really, some of them, not everybody, but some of them just don't know.
And you're in your second year, so there's
Yeah,
a lot
this
of
will be our
change.
second year, we
A
just.
lot of change in the startup in the second year. So there's nothing that says you can't reorganize,
Cool.
right? But I'm taking it that you're the CEO of this
Yeah,
organization,
I'm
right?
the president.
So you're the one that they're gonna look to for leadership.
Very well.
And they're gonna say to you, okay, if we're gonna change, what is it that you wanna change? And if you have that already planned out,
Have a plan so they can see a visual, so they can visually see
Yeah.
my visions.
yep, and say, okay, and I would have one-on-one conversations with these people privately before, don't bring them all into a room and throw this out,
Okay,
okay?
I do my one-on-ones, I do my,
Do
call,
your
I call my
one-on-
check-ins once. a
Right,
month.
and start talking folks and say, hey, I think we need to change. This is what I'm thinking of. What do you think? And get, make them part of that process, but do it on an individual basis.
And then.
And then once everyone is on the same page, then bring everyone into the room and say, this is what I've been thinking about, and everyone's already said yes to it. So then it just becomes a lot
It's not a
easier.
surprise.
It's not a surprise, it's like, what are you thinking? What, okay?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that too is understanding too, their roles are gonna change over time, like as your business grows. You know, and one of my best mentors would tell me that you really need to grow out of your current role, you know, and start thinking about that, and that really kind of changed my perspective on it. Because I feel like sometimes people feel like they get stuck in the box, you know, and you have to kind of think outside of the box.
And I want everyone to grow around me, because like the
Yeah.
fact is, I'm trying to expand, and
Well, that's just
so,
a free view as a leader, it's just building other leaders.
that's right, that's what I'm.
And that's part of that rhythm that I was talking about. If you're having weekly, monthly get-togethers, right?
Yep, we have a board meeting once a month, and I do one-on-ones with them once a month.
People need to feel comfortable, even if it's outside their area of expertise, with adding suggestions. I can't tell you how many times, you know, we'd be talking about a sales issue and the production manager is saying, why don't you guys just do this? Oh yeah, didn't think about that, right? So those kind of open meetings where you know what you're gonna be, what the agenda is gonna be, people can be thinking about it a little bit, and you may get some ideas from places you never thought of.
I got some questions over here.
Okay, go ahead.
Let's see, sorry, it went away. When building a new business, when do you want to start hiring your staff?
When do you want to, man, that's a tough question. It is a great question. You want to start hiring, obviously, when you can, when you have enough work for someone to do primarily, right? Meaning that you're going to keep them busy, but also you can sustain their salary. It doesn't make any sense to try and bring someone on if you know that you're going to have a lot of work for them to do this week, and then the week after that, there's not going to be anything, and maybe the week after that, there'll be more. But when it's up and down like that, unless you can get folks that are willing to work part-time and be able to come in and do things like that, but hiring a full-time person is a commitment on their part and on your part, quite a bit, right? But I have seen where folks have been very successful with bringing people in part-time too. They'll come in and work on demand and get whatever needs to be done. But you'll know when it's time to hire someone, when there's way too much work for you to do, the cash flow is there, and some people wait a little too long. If you can do it, then I would bring someone in to help. You have to know what it is that you want them to do. That's got to be, you don't want to bring someone in and just say, okay, just jump in and help. You've got to have it defined, because if they're all over the place, it's just going to get chaotic for you. It's going to be frustrating for them. But you want to make sure you've got the cash flow to cover them. If it's a full-time, if it's a part-time, you need someone who's going to be flexible. So without knowing the specific situation, that's about the best I can say.
Another question from our virtual audience. Do you build job descriptions off of your organizational chart, or your organizational chart off your job descriptions?
So you're going to, you have to know what it is that you want that person to do. So in that case, you have to know what the job is, what the job description is to create the position. So it would be the job description, what it is you want that person to do, and then create the position.
Okay, and one more question from our virtual audience. How do you find the right people?
In today's market, I have no idea. That is tough. You know, at the end of the day, the way that businesses have done this historically is you interview folks, right? You bring them in, you interview them, and you go anywhere from, you come in, you talk to someone for half an hour, and you decide, do you like them, basically, right? Do they answer the questions the right way? And you hire them. And then you hear these stories about people that go for 6 interviews and they got to take tests. And then they're asked, if you're in the jungle and you come across this, how do you, you know, how many pizzas would fit in the Empire State Building? You know, these are questions that you get asked on these interviews. And it's just nuts. But how you find these people, especially today, it's very difficult. I think the best thing for businesses is to know what it is that you want out of an employee, how they can contribute, and what you're willing to do for your employees, and just have very open and honest conversations. And let folks know that this is what I need you to do, and how I'm going to need you to contribute, step up, and in return, this is a salary that I'm willing to pay. These are the benefits that we're willing to give, that sort of thing. And just have a very open and honest conversation. And let people decide if that's something that interests them. But at the end of the day, finding that right individual, it's tough. It really is.
I've got one more. This is a Mary question, and she says it's the worst question ever. Just to preface that, and also she says you're welcome, David. Is there a strategic way to grow without hiring?
A strategic way to grow without hiring? Yes, there is. You can outsource a lot of your work. There are complete companies out there that are built around outsourcing. And I've talked to folks and I've heard of folks that have built pretty big businesses, and it's just them, and they outsource a bunch of the stuff that they need to do. So that way you never have to hire anyone. Contractors, other companies that'll do things with you, virtual assistants. I don't know if you've heard about these folks, right? Yeah, there are ways to do that. Right. Thank you, folks. I'd be happy to meet with any of you folks. I'd love to hear about your businesses, what it is that you're doing, that sort of thing. I'll give you my business card if you'd like to touch base, but that's something else that I really enjoy doing, just sitting down with business owners and talking to them about what they're doing in their business and hearing about that sort of thing too. So, well, thank you very much for everyone for showing up at the library tonight, and for those online. I appreciate you logging on and staying with us.
All right. Thank you, David.
Yep.
Okay, bye, everybody online.
David is one of our mentors.
Yes, David is a SCORE mentor. Just so
Yes.
everyone knows.
I assign him to people regularly because he's so good. So thank you all. If you want David, let me know. Sorry, David. You did too good of a job. It's phenomenal.
All right. Thanks, Mary.